Gaming NBS episode 256 coming to you Monday, August 19th, 2019. All right. Welcome to Gaming NBS, a tabletop RPG podcast. I'm Sean.
And I'm Brett. Welcome to the show, folks. Welcome back. Glad everybody's around. Sean, I'd ask you what the hell you did this last weekend, but I know what you did because I was there, man.
I spent it with Brettster.
So it was Sean, Wayne Lumrunner, Humpfleet, me. We had Brian there. We had, I always mispronounce Brian's last name. Sean, help me. Save me.
Whackham. Thank
you. And Joe Papa Swick was in from Detroit.
Rock City.
And Mr. Alex Kimmer of Gamehole Con fame and the Gamehole loaned us the Gamehole, which is super sweet of him. And I should also say Wayne's daughter was gaming with us too. That was a lot of fun.
Allie.
Yeah, Allie was there. And ran some Avalon stuff. We played some board games and just had an all around pretty damn good relaxing time.
Shadowrun Sprawl.
Yeah, Shadowrun Sprawl.
Sprawl Ops or Sprawl something.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
And then I played Cartographer.
Did you? Okay, you guys played that after I left.
Got my ass kicked in both games.
Damn.
Yeah.
Well, when we were playing the Shadowrun Sprawl board game, we're like, okay, we're working up for like the final mission, working up. And Swick's like, hang on a second. I think I can do this right now. We're like, holy shit. And then Wayne tells us, oh, yeah, this game is a pretty quick runtime. Like, well, son of a bitch. Anyway.
Oh.
It's a pretty good game. Pretty good game all around.
Yeah.
The Avalon game was a lot of fun. That was pretty cool.
It was fun. Brett, thanks for running.
Thank you. You're welcome. I had a good time. So let's see here. Excuse me. Enough about that stuff. What's coming up? What's coming up here? Avalon Kickstarter. While we're talking about Avalon, people should have, if you're part of the Kickstarter and your print-on-demand coupons, your coupons, as we would say here in lovely Wisco, your coupons should be in your inboxes, people. So a friend of mine said, hey, I didn't seem to get mine. Something's wrong. And I said, well, what are you going to do about that? And he goes, I emailed that Phil guy. I said, Phil, get back to you. And then he texted me like 2 seconds after I said that. He goes, yeah, apparently you and Phil are psychic because as soon as you had said Phil will get back to you, Phil did get back to him and solve that little problem. So it was pretty cool. Joe brought his, Mr. Swick was back at the what's in a box level, so he brought me a copy of the box, what was in it, so I could see it. And I knew what was in it by description, but I hadn't physically seen it, so I thought it was pretty cool. So I was very grateful that he brought that with him all the way from Detroit.
Thanks for the copy, dude.
Hey, no problem, man.
Brett gave me a copy, even though I ordered a hardback.
I think I forgot to sign that one for you before I left.
You did.
So I'll have to catch you again if you want me to. If you want me to devalue it to eBay, little eBay
buyer. Yes,
I'm gonna fucking do that too. You're gonna say.
Then everybody
will
think I never got one. Like it just was from eBay.
Yeah.
I won this off of eBay because Brett never gave me one. What
I want you to do is then say, yeah, man, I had to pay like $200 just to get this thing. So people like freak out. Okay. It's totally worth money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Haha. Psych. Oh, well, so speaking of cool stuff, GameholeCon.com is the place to go to find out everything you need to know about GameholeCon. So that is Halloween. That's coming up right quick. You know what we ought to do? We ought to get Alex back in a show. We met him out for Beer Friday night, and he had a couple interesting things he wanted to talk about. So we might want to see if we can get him back on, chat with him a little bit. What do you think?
I guess.
All right, fine.
Fine. Whatever.
Maybe. We'll see.
Oh, so you know what he did? He brought up a topic that I think would be okay, which would be he's like, one of your topics should be, because I told him we did the Temple of Elemental Evil.
Oh, the design contrasts.
He's like, what modules from the olden days have aged well and could be.
And that dude knows old school modules because he has them all.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. That's exactly the topic I was thinking about.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
so
there
get
you
him
go.
in there. Talk about that.
Yeah.
I'll put that on your plate. There you go.
Sounds good.
Let's see. So go to GameholeCon.com if you haven't already bought your badge. Check out events and so forth. Yeah, a good place. It'll be a lot of fun. Hope to see lots of folks there. Evercon.org. Evercon.org is my little gaming convention, 1,200 person con up in central Wisconsin. That's happening in January. Check that out. Hopefully we will see you there as well. Sean, any other announcements? Anything cool, crazy?
No.
No? Don't have those forums done yet?
Oh, well, I'm working on it.
Working on it? All
we'll
right.
see. Soft launch.
Soft launch. What do you mean? Fuck, it's not working. Ah, shit, try that. Ah, damn it.
Oh, I can't say like it's working and have everybody go head over to here and then it's not there.
Everybody flock over to it and then it had to take it down because you're working on it. I get it. That's fair. That's fair. That's fair, Sean. That's fair.
Cool. I found out they're free. I didn't realize that they're free. If you want the hosted version, it's $100 a month. Wow.
Holy crap.
Yeah, that's a little steep, but that's headache free.
That's true. It would be.
And they do cater to some big rollers. So I'm gonna spin up an instance on DigitalOcean.
Did you bother to tell them who we were? That this is Gaming BS?
I know somebody that works where we host some of our shit. So I saw him at a IT conference, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm your customer."
Son of a gun! Where's my discount?
Brian,
God damn it,
Brian Hogan. He doesn't listen to this.
Of course not.
He's a cool developer.
Excuse me. All right, let's random encounter it up.
Let's do it. Dicking around.
Yeah, yammered on long enough.
Randoms encounters. So it doesn't matter. Anybody.
You start. You go.
I start.
You start.
Bill of House Durfee emails us on my misfortunes. He says, my friends from Afghanistan have celebrated 8th annual Alive Day when we got the closest of close calls, which are probably way closer than what I've experienced. I want to include Sean in our next Alive Day.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm back in China, and I recall the motorcycle accident. I'm glad you are still around. We will include Sean when we tip a pint next Alive Day.
Oh, Bill. That's cool.
Yeah. So I am very, very honored to even be lumped in with those guys because those guys face big danger.
Yeah, purposely.
But right, like I signed up for this. I don't want to be signed up for it, but they are there under orders. So
correct.
So thanks, Bill. Hope all those guys are doing well, and tip my hat to you guys. Thanks for serving, and
absolutely.
I'm more than honored to be a part of Alive Day.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it is very cool. Thanks, Bill.
All right. Let's see. Angela of House R writes in to help Lewis's inquiry on running a game for all women. Hello, Brett and Sean. I'm a longtime listener and lurker. This is the first time I was enticed to write in. I'm responding to Lewis's question regarding running a game for a group of women. As a female who's been gaming for almost 30 years myself, I thought my perspective might be helpful. First, I want to thank Lewis for trying to be sensitive. However, the bottom line is that most people want to be treated like people, regardless of their gender. My simplest answer to his question is that on average, a group of females want to play a similar game to any group of males he's previously dealt with. You two were giving similar advice, which I think is great. But being a woman myself, I wanted to support that point. The truth is, in this day and age, we shouldn't assume that just because someone looks like a female, that is their gender they identify with anyway. So when dealing with a group of strangers, try to remove gender from the equation and treat everyone equally. My bottom line advice is to approach this group like any other group of gamers. As you play with them and get to know them, adjust your GM style and the adventure specifics to each person as an individual, regardless of their gender or any other stereotype that you may have. Also on the other topic about player expectations, there are two great resources I want to make sure you have. The first is an article from 2013 that lists 11 ways to be a better role player. Just got a link. We'll have that in show notes. The second being an episode of the Plus One Forward podcast about player agenda and principles. We'll also have a link for that. Both of these have information I think you and your listeners will enjoy. I agree in general that there are a lot of gaming resources about what a game master should do, but I think that players have an almost equal responsibility. I'd like to see more discussion on this topic, so look forward to your future episode. In closing, thanks for a great podcast, and thanks for pulling me out of the shadows. Please continue the great work. Sincerely, Angela, not the famous one. Oh, and she says, yes, she is the shy one that shook my hand at Origins a couple years ago. So I have met this Angela. Very nice person. Very cool. Angela, great to hear from you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks, Angela. And you're famous with us.
Yeah. And I think your advice is sound. And we'd asked before, for any female listeners we had, or anybody who had good opinions or ideas on this, to write in and let us know. So good stuff. Thank you very, very much. And I appreciate you taking the time.
Yes, that's very important. Thanks for lending perspective, which is much needed.
Absolutely.
Blake of House Roy in response to the mongrel. I think they live right next to each other.
Well, they must. I mean, Australia's a pretty small place.
Right, of course. I mean, I live right next door to Brett, so.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, they just pick a shrimp off the barbie and chuck it at each other when they want their attention.
Yeah.
They're trying to avoid the poisonous snakes and trees that'll kill you.
They probably got the same boots from the same crocodile.
I would assume so.
Good day. Regarding Pure Mongrel's energy and expectations query, you can do a session 0 to set expectations and just say, hey, we all make this game work. Paying attention and putting energy in makes it work. It's our story. Sourcing the table for ideas helps too, because they do the driving. So once per dungeon, you say, hey, there's something in the crates your parents would value. What is it? Or your party makes camp and there's a smell that reminds you of your childhood. What is it? Let them talk for a while you take a breather. They are fighting a monster type and they've fought dozens of times. Say, hey, this one sounds different. What does it sound like? Get them to do some sound effects, accents. You are not the only entertainer. They can describe what their characters are doing. If one of them has a good voice, then they can read out some box text. Lastly, don't be afraid to take a break. You're not a machine. Take 3 to 5 minutes and have a few deep breaths. Get some water. Munch down a Chico roll. What the hell's a Chico roll? It's probably probably has Vegemite and shit in it.
It's an Australian thing, man.
Pure Mongrel is doing good work. A legend. Links to my brief YouTube videos below. So we'll have those in the die roll that Blake has talked about these specific points about sourcing the table, which is a 10-minute video, and session 0, which is an 8-minute video. Keep the dice rolling, fellas. Blake.
So I do want to call out a piece that when Blake mentions what the mongrel's doing, if folks remember, he's doing, he's using role-playing as a way to help teach social skills and stuff to kids and people and so on. And I think some of the things that mongrel's dealing with in that space, I am not there. I do not know. I'm absolutely guessing. But it's probably not what a lot of people would call, I'm going to use this phrase, normal, or, people with different perspectives, very seriously different perspectives from all sorts of walks of life. So I think sometimes, much like the earlier one where Ange says, hey, Angela's like, we're all gamers, treat us with respect as people and so forth. And I think the type of thing that the mongrel's doing is awesome. And I really think the stuff that Blake here is throwing out is some of the stuff that you and I would do, Sean. I need a breather. So give me the name of a bartender, tell me a thing, give me a second to do this, and sourcing the table like that. I think that's pretty cool.
I do that because I'm lazy.
Yeah, I know. But I think it's interesting how some of the interesting is maybe the wrong word, but these types of things, I think can work regardless of the audience almost. At least that they have in my experience. Mongrel, obviously doing something a little bit more intense perhaps than I have, but like it's still a good idea to look back at some of those things that you do at a quote unquote regular game. And is that something that would help? Mongrel, obviously, when you hear that, you may say, Brett, Sean, you dumbasses, that's totally off base. That doesn't work at all. I've tried that 1,000 times. Our apologies, but curious what you think, man. Cool.
Yeah.
What else we got here? We got Ron Bishop. He emailed us preemptively on this episode of Art and RPGs. He enjoys the Random Encounter episode show. You guys are the best audience in the world. God damn it, we do. Our audience is pretty freaking awesome.
I would have to say.
It's quite good.
I mean,
yeah.
I would never dispute that.
I would never dispute it either.
No.
Because I'd be a liar, and that's not me.
No, let's not lie.
He goes on to say, I see the next episode is about art and RPGs. That has always been one of the biggest draws for me, going all the way back to the 1E Monster Manual I had in junior high back in 79. I admin a Facebook group called Black and White Illustration for Tabletop Role-Playing Games. Had to expand the name out from the BWTTRPG to because lots of people aren't familiar with all the acronyms. Well, it seems like a small niche. There are almost 2,200 members. From the About, in early role-playing pamphlets, books, and modules were in black and white, mostly because color was out of reach technically or financially. However, black and white also captured the spontaneity and energy of role-playing. This group showcases both old school and current black and white illustrators in the RPG field. There are several veterans and newer RPG artists in the group. Russ Nicholson, Bradley K. McDivitt, Tony Ackland, Paul Daly, David Day, Darlene, Jeff D. Wow. Kent Burles, Chris Arneson, David Guile, Melissa Guile, Aaron Howdle, Jason David Russell, Brian Thomas. Oh my God. Skull Fungus, Ray Otis, Dave Bazina, Hannah Saunders. My God. There are game designers and game book authors in addition to those listed above. Wow. David Beatty, friend of the show, friend of ours, is there. Greg Gillespie, Troy Anthony. Oh my God. Tons of stuff. While the largest demographic of members are 45 to 54-year-old men, grognards, I try to make sure there's diversity of artwork from different games, genres, styles, and artists, including women, LGBTQ, minorities, voices, that he's also trying to get represented. So very, very cool. Thank you, Ron. Good call out there. If you're on Facebook and you can handle it, go out there and take a look at that. When I say handle it, not this group, I'm talking about Facebook. Facebook's kind of annoying. But black and white illustrations for tabletop role-playing games. Very cool.
Yeah, thanks, Ron.
Thanks, man.
Crim Fam comments on suspending belief. So he's going a few back. J.R.R. Tolkien had a notion of secondary reality, which characterizes it in terms of internal consistency. I think things like dragons and fireballs are part of the secondary reality of fantasy. They're things that work in the genre, and people accept them as part of it. If you use magic to fall long distances or hold your breath, sure. In some cases, like Barrier Peaks, you're also talking about the boundaries of genre, but that affects the secondary reality in other ways. However, the goofiness of falling damage or breath holding is really quite jarring, in no small part because most people have some kind of real-life experience with it. They're really not part of the secondary reality and thus are jarring. I also think that things like falling or breath holding have a kind of uncanny valley effect, and that these are things that are close enough to real life. Maybe a game focused on monks, then yeah, incredible breath holding or falling makes sense because they fit the secondary reality. And you're right, handling this gracefully to keep the game rolling is very important. Where it gets particularly bad is when a player with rules lawyer or power gamer tendencies has found an exploitable loophole.
Yeah, that's fun. Oh yeah, I can fall 3,000 feet because I'm within 6 inches of this wall and take no damage, so I'm going to, that type of thing.
Right.
Good points. I'd forgotten about Tolkien's notion of secondary reality. Thank you. And I think that is true. When it comes closer to real life, it can be more jarring. You see a griffin or a dragon or something fantastic, it's easy to go, well, they don't really exist. That's magic. It's supernatural or whatever the case is. So, yeah, once it gets closer to real life, it does have a more smack you in the face jarring level. So, very good point, Grim Fan. Thank you very much. Yeah. Oh, we got a voicemail from Kojo, man.
Kojo.
Lay it on us.
Brad and Sean, hey, it's DM Kojo calling about Temple of Elemental Evil. I got to tell you, this is one of my favorite adventures of all time. Even now. I would say that. I haven't run it since I was much younger, but I think I would definitely run it again now. I find that these older adventures, I know they suit me. Maybe it's because what I grew up with, but I don't think I'm just viewing it through the lens of nostalgia when I say that I think it's a great adventure. I think it's important that when we look at, historical things in our hobby or in any hobby, that we do take it with a grain of salt and view it through the lens of when it came out and the era that it's an artifact of. I guess the history teacher in me talking, but, I wouldn't look at video games and say, the original NES Legend of Zelda was good, but the new games are so much better just because technology has advanced and ideas on game design have advanced. I would still say, looking back at it, that it's a great game. I think that, fancy layout and art and, all these quality materials and layout designs and everything for RPGs certainly have improved in some ways, but when you look at the core of the game itself, I really feel like the old modules did give you everything you needed to be successful running it, but I do think that it was some freeform prep was needed by the Dungeon Master. Maybe they could have done a better job explaining how to do that, but again, it's the early days of the hobby, and every Dungeon Master, I think, was kind of figuring it out on their own, including the game designers. So just my thoughts on Temple of Elemental Evil. Love it. It's a great campaign starter for me, and I would probably run it still. Thanks. Bye.
Cool.
Thanks, Kojo.
Yeah, man. Good perspective.
I think when we talk about old versus new,
yeah,
better versus not as good is, so there's
that can be rough.
There's inherent opinions.
Yes.
Okay. And then there are facts. And I think separating the two is where everybody gets into a big kerfuffle about stuff, right?
Yeah.
We don't usually argue the facts because it's there. I mean, what are the facts? Like, there's a difference between the two. And then what happens is,
what do you like? What
do you like of those two?
Which do you prefer?
Which do you prefer? So, look, is Nintendo analogy with Zelda and going back to like 8-bit.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody could love 8-bit.
Yeah.
But 32-bit, the graphics are better. And better as in advanced.
Yeah. So it's
technologically.
We use feeling words
right
to describe something.
Yes.
Because oftentimes it's difficult to use other types of words.
Yes.
Right? They just come to mind immediately. Oh, this is better. What do you mean it's better? Well, it's a sharper picture.
Well, people don't usually quantify anything. That's the problem I have with a lot of things.
We
go back to that episode, and it's like, it's one of the top 10 rated modules of all time. And we have somebody actually on our Facebook that's like, hey, I got that dungeon magazine.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to scan it. And,
perfect.
And show us like and whatever. And somebody else posted something on Twitter. I don't know if it was Wayne. God, I apologize because they're probably like, it was me. But somebody posted on Twitter and said, oh, and then there was criteria based on some type of ranking, but it was really, it sounded like it was kind of fluffy. There wasn't any really
It's goofy, man, because when you talk about what's good or not, popularity contest, right, is kind of what happens. Who's prettier, who's more handsome, who's more attractive in what way or whatever. If you don't like that thing, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's kind of like Ken and Robin. They're an Emmy award-winning podcast, but their audio quality could use a facelift, in my opinion.
Well, I agree. I also would say that I enjoy the show from time to time, but I wouldn't call it an RPG podcast.
Well,
because but again, that's your and my opinions.
So my point is, with talking to Kojo, that's why we have a podcast, because we can talk about this shit, right? Right? We can have opinions, and we could say, oh, this is kind of the deal. And
I think the best thing we can do to serve ourselves and our audience appropriately is like, look, this is what we think, what some people say, and unless something is glaringly bad, and by bad I mean harmful to someone, if it's clearly a matter of opinion, like, hey, I like that old school approach. Good. If you like that, you will love this. If you don't like that, you may well not like this so much. It's tough. I mean, Jared Rasher writes some really good in-depth reviews, and it's hard to review stuff.
Well, you have,
when you're, because that's essentially art or very up for grabs, or I don't know, it's conditional.
Well, we're going to get into this shit, right?
I know. Let's do it. Let's go.
So let's get into that. We'll just do something like this. It's upon us.
It is. Art and RPGs, man.
Art and RPGs. Very much I like this. I don't like that. Why? Because it's art, man. It's art, man.
It is.
Man. Hey, man. I played a beatnik bard in Brett's game on Saturday. So
he had bongos.
Had bongos and cool kind of, I don't know what the hell kind of beard thingy it is.
A little goatee.
It's a goatee, but there's a specific kind of goatee that.
It's a goatee. If you have the mustache with, that's called a Van Dyke, actually.
That's what I'm talking about, Van Dyke.
Yeah, that's what most people in our generation mistakenly call a goatee, which is not true. It's a Van Dyke.
I see. So the goatee is just
the chin.
That's
a goatee, like a goat.
Right.
There you go.
Oh man. Thanks for setting me straight, Brett.
Hey.
Now I'm on a mission.
Facial hair lessons.
That's not a goatee, you dick. That's a frickin' Van Dyke.
Yeah. Anyhow, so art, man.
Art.
You've wanted to talk about this for a while.
I have. And there's a lot of ways to tackle this shit.
There is. I think let's hit this first and see where we get.
All right.
You know, how important is art to an RPG?
Oh my God, it's so important. It is.
If you picked up an RPG
that
had no art in it.
Oh my God.
Would that turn you off?
First of all, why would I do that?
Because I told you it's a really good game.
Oh.
So I go, hey, look at this. It's really cool. You read a review. Oh, it's great. But there's no art in it.
What kind of game is it?
It's an RPG. Don't worry about it.
It's a word game RPG.
Yeah, it's called Sudoku. No, I'm kidding. Does art attract you to a game? Does it make you? Oh,
hell yeah. Hands down, not without a question.
If it wasn't there, if you didn't have a cool looking cover or some kind of a eye candy to grab you, would you want to, would you even look at that? Would you look at that book, man? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, when you see, we don't want to judge a book by its cover.
Oh, I don't believe that at all.
But man, when you see really snazzy looking art, or if you see what you deem offensive, you deem crappy, you deem blah, 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 that can turn you off completely.
So I do think the adage, you can't judge a book by its cover, applies to books.
Novels.
Books,
biographies, that type of thing.
Ah, sure. Yes.
Got it.
But with our
little niche,
our world that is of the BS and RPGers, it's not the same.
No, because that's supposed to be a grabber and indicative in some way, evocative of the game, right?
Yes, there's too much that goes into an RPG that is not, it is different than a novel. It's just way, way, way different. We can read them like novels, but they're not at all the same. Not even close.
I've equated it to the movie poster.
Sure.
When you walk into the theater and you see the movie poster up there.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just a shadow and you're like, oh, that's Godzilla.
Yeah, but you can't judge a movie poster by its poster, can you?
Oh, yeah.
I don't think so.
I've walked by movies posters and went, that doesn't look interesting at all.
And it'd be the best.
It could be.
See, I think that's too close to a novel book.
I'm just saying it's similar, though, where it's designed to really grab you.
Yes, I agree in that regard, yes.
And a good movie poster tells you, hey, this movie's going to have this stuff in it, right? Or sometimes that book, the novel of that isn't always the most accurate, blah, blah, blah. But I guess with an RPG one, when you see, the warrior queen on her horse stabbing a dragon, you're like, huh, but there's some badass sons of guns in this book here that are gonna stabbing dragons. That's probably part of this game. Sensibly armored men and women fighting dragons is probably part of this game.
Let's hope so.
I'm just saying when you see that's what you're expecting.
There's probably some games out there that have that art on there, and there's like, no, doesn't align. That's the difference. That's a deal, though.
It's jarring.
It is.
Yeah.
But they also play a role in branding.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect example is if you look at Planescape, and you look at Dark Sun, and you look at Dragonlance, they all have particular looks and feels. And for that Beholder movie I watched, that was probably the first time in D&D TSR history where it was like, when we produce this product, we want it to look and feel a specific way.
There was a style guide for Dragonlance.
Correct.
Larry Elmore said that to you and I at GaryCon last year.
Yes.
Drinking bourbon with Larry, which is fucking awesome.
Right.
And he's talking about the style guide.
Yes.
And how they wanted it to look and all that stuff.
Right.
Because it was centered around a group of characters.
Right. It would look weird if you took Planescape art.
Yeah, Tony DiTerlizzi's art. I always mispronounce his last name.
Right. And put it in Dragonlance. Doesn't work.
Yes.
I mean, fine. It's great art. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it just doesn't, there's not a consistent feel.
Yes.
It would be disjointed.
And that's a piece, right? When you see a cover, or especially internal pieces that are jarring, they don't jive, they don't mix, or excuse me, they feel like they're mixing metaphors, if you will, or I don't understand. It's not evocative of the setting. It's not evocative of the system. It doesn't seem to tell me what types of adventures or things that are happening, what's supposed to be going on here, right?
Right.
When you pick up the last time I read through Savage Worlds, one of the things to help invoke the fact, actually Cypher System did this too. I'm sure GURP says it's been forever, but the fact that it's universal and you can do anything with it, that is scattered throughout. You could see, at least in the Explorers edition of Savage Worlds, you would see like juxtaposed fairly close, like the medieval fantasy combat. 2 pages over is like the Rocketeer, and then there's an alien, and then there's a superhero, and then there's a vampire. You know, by doing that, that game is telling you, hey, all this stuff is possible in this world, right? The old vampire, the Masquerade books and stuff by White Wolf, when you picked up the werewolf book, the mage book, or whatever, it was all evocative of that stuff. Changeling was all about changelings and so forth. It was all very tight to try to say, hey, this is what this book is all about. It's very important. And I think more thought goes into, and it's not like Dragonlance was the only one to do it, but that idea of branding and really trying to keep it tight is something that game companies spend a lot of time on. I think art direction and so forth is something that if they're smart, they're spending plenty of time to make sure that it's tight and makes sense and is sending the message that they want sent. When I did my Avalon book, we were all very specific. I wanted to make sure that it wasn't just middle-aged white dude art.
Right.
I wanted people of color in there. I wanted to make sure there was different gender representation and so forth. I wanted to have different stuff because I don't know who's going to pick up this book, and I want them to feel welcome when they pick it up. And that's important.
Yes.
So I think when kind of put that aside, I shouldn't say necessarily just aside, but the importance of it is that you can turn someone away from your product that could potentially be an amazing supporter of your product if you don't have representational art, if you don't have art that's evocative and consistent and everything that we were just talking about, that kind of the feel and good art direction. If you don't have it, you can turn people away who may otherwise love your game or your product or whatever it is for our RPG world. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good. We're on the same page here. That's good. Sean, what was the first piece of art that you remember?
That I remember?
From your RPG? Oh, what's that? Did you have that moment?
Oh, man. The PHB first edition.
Same here.
Advanced D&D Player's Handbook.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Which cover?
The Tramp.
Ah, okay. That one. All right. Yeah. The Idol.
The Idol. Throw me the whip. I'll throw you the idol.
My buddy and his brother had the Eastleigh cover with the wizard. That was the one I started with.
Oh, yes.
And when I saw the David Trampier version of it, I went, ooh, what's this? Is this a different? Oh, no, just different cover. Neat.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
The one we're referring to is the one with the big, the orange, reddish demon with the red gems in their eyes. And
the statue. Dead lizard men.
Yeah. And they're plucking them out. And then there's a couple people standing, reading a scroll or something. That would be the one, because that was like the first thing. Like, hey, this is a player's handbook. You're going to need this to play. And you're like, what is this? Oh my gosh, this is great. We're going to play that? Oh my God.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Right. Got to color in these crappy dice? Okay. Sounds good.
I think it was, I can't remember which book it was, maybe the old Role-Playing Gamers Bible I read ages back. I think Sean Fannin wrote that. Anyway, there was kind of a jokingly aside, if you will, that some of the old art was quote unquote bad. When I say bad, like stylistically speaking, it wasn't sometimes not an art schooled person, right? Not a professional artist, because there's not a lot of money in this. And sometimes it was the dude in the office who could draw better than everybody else was scratching this stuff out. Right?
Yeah, there's some pretty...
There's some bad perspectives. There's some weird... Even Tramp, David Trampier, who did that, covered a bunch of others. There's some of them you're like, I think the perspective is off, but it's still cool looking. But
yeah,
from an art critic perspective, probably not the best art, stylistically speaking, but still pretty evocative. Which, if it's done right, even if it's quote unquote bad, it still evokes the right thing. Yeah,
and we should probably put a disclaimer out here, because as soon as we start poo-pooing some of this or saying an opinion about a particular... Somebody's loving it, and that is fine, and that is great, and that is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But what we're trying to convey is that in the early days of TSR, they admit that they didn't hire professional artists. Like they were in one example, they were talking about like literally kids out of high school.
Yeah,
which that doesn't mean kids out of. No, all right, now I got to put another disclaimer there because somebody's going to crucify me because their 16-year-old can draw like a champ, which they can.
No, it's just nowadays. When you look at now,
yes,
there are professional artists that, because of the success of Dungeons and Dragons and the fantasy genre, you can make a living. Magic the Gathering, whatnot. You can make a living to define that, right? But you can do that professionally. You can be a professional artist and because guys like Larry Elmore, Eastleigh, Parkinson, and so forth did all this work.
Caldwell,
all that.
The Gang of Four.
Yeah, Jeff D. Sutherland, Earl Otis. I mean, there's amazing Doug Kovacs, blah blah blah. I can keep dropping names.
Yeah.
But you can be a professional artist and be schooled and trained and so on and make this stuff happen. Frazetta did this stuff. Boris Vallejo did stuff. There's Boris Vallejo Dragon magazine covers and so forth. Now, one of the other thing that's interesting from the art history perspective is I do remember being a kid and paging through the original Monster Manual and seeing boobies, right?
Oh, there were succubus.
Yes,
I think,
there
probably.
Was succubus.
Yeah.
There was not a lot of exposed men per se, but there were. I think the Eldritch Wizardry cover for the small old school box, nude woman on the cover of it, or something along those lines. That type of thing doesn't fly very much anymore.
Yeah, that's
and rightfully so. That's a relic. We can do without that relic. We don't need that.
Yeah,
there's still plenty of inappropriately clad ladies in combat, which you're like, why would you wear that while in a fight, right? That just makes no sense.
Well, the audience hasn't changed, but who they thought was playing the game.
The perceived audience.
Yes.
People's perception of who's playing has been slapped.
Yes.
Be like, oh wow, this is open your goddamn eyes and look who's playing.
They thought a bunch of 13, 14-year-old Brett and Sean's were playing the game all the time back in those days, and therefore being full of hormones and her,
I don't know. It was also a style, though. I mean, you look at Frank Frazetta and the early Conan books,
sure,
and some of that stuff. That style of art, Boris Vallejo. I mean, big dramatic poses of very muscular people and wonderful, tits and ass. It was, that's just what they did.
Yeah,
that was fantasy art.
Well, and some of that comes from Renaissance artistry, like voluptuous women, no clothing. That's hanging up in the Louvre, it's different than
that's art,
which is
just smut.
Yeah, right.
It's goofy.
And then we take that and put it in a role playing book, and it's like, well,
but again, though, it's the audience thing we talked about,
right?
And when people start to wake up and realize, hey, there's lots of men and women and lots of different people of lots of different ages and approaches to life and viewpoints and so forth that enjoy this stuff. And we should also stipulate there are women that do appreciate that art. Oh, hell yeah.
Right. There's women that don't. And so
and men that do, men that don't.
Exactly.
Bisexual people that do and don't, all that stuff.
Yes.
You find you cannot broad brush paint anything.
No.
You can't.
Nope. I agree.
But you can look at art now, which I think some of the better ones are doing, and they say, hey, you know what? We can draw beautiful people, or what we think is beautiful.
Right.
And do it as tasteful as possible.
Yes.
Because you never know who might be a big fan of my work or this game.
Right.
Right.
Or they can identify with.
Exactly. We talked about this a little bit, when you start putting African American women on Dungeon Crawl Classics stuff, t-shirts. Right. I can't remember the name, the classic character that Doug Kovacs drew. She's got the big Afro puffs thing going, and she's just a badass.
Yeah, I don't know their characters.
There's a name. There's a bunch of names for them.
They have them named. Yeah,
they do. But when you start having that type of representation out there, that's really cool because there's more than just Brett and Sean playing this game,
right?
And that's really, really neat. My youngest daughter, Ilana, likes looking at. She loves art. She loves drawing and so on. And she'll page through the books, and she's looking for something that reminds her of her or her friends. So it's interesting when you look at the styles and so forth. And I know I have heard some people bitch about that, like, oh, that's political correctness or whatever. And I'm like, okay, why do you? I mean, it's still great art. I mean, you look at it, it's really kick ass. But instead of some dude saving this poor naked woman from a serpent, it is two dudes, a female warrior and the halfling warrior, and they're all fighting the serpent and the evil wizard together. Why do we have to save any naked anything? Why does that have to be part of it? That doesn't have to be there. Now, granted, if you're going to do that and that's your home game and that's what you dig on that, all right, you be you. But what I mean, from an art perspective, in the books, it doesn't need to be there.
Right. So what we're getting at is that over time, there's been a conscious effort to be diverse in the art that is assigned to RPG products in order to ensure that people identify with it. Therefore, they will buy it. They will feel welcome, blah.
I think that's a good thing, man.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Why would, well, I'm sure there's others that would say it's a bad thing, but whatever.
Somebody doesn't like it. But,
and that's fine. Whatever. I'm not here to get into a pissing match about all that stuff. But yeah.
I was going to say, we can step away from that for a second here. Do you have a favorite fantasy artist?
Fantasy artist, specifically.
Let's just get RPG artist.
Artist.
If you were going to say, hey, one of my favorite, and sometimes to me it comes down to like a picture. Like that photo or that painting or that thing was so cool. When I think really cool RPG art, I think, boom.
Brett wanted to grow up and be that person in that art.
Yeah.
It is a very tough thing for me to say because there's a lot. Well, and I have a thing. So, like, there are the typical big four guys that were at TSR in the, like, kind of their...
In the 80s, man.
Yeah, in the big art scene. I mean, we already mentioned them. Elmore, Caldwell, Easley, and Parkinson.
Yep.
Okay. Amongst others that there's obviously more to name than just those four. But when I was growing up, those were kind of like the key. I would see there. I could identify their artwork, which is unusual for me. You stick a Rembrandt in front of me, I'm sure.
Yeah, but I could tell you if that was Willingham.
Okay.
From BX art, I could tell you his stuff. Earl Otis, I know his.
Otis,
oh yeah,
yep.
That's Diesel's art. That's Diesel of Force. Yeah, I know that.
Right.
Oh, Jeff D. That's Jeff D. art. Yeah. Boom, I can tell you.
I've been to the Louvre. Very nice. I feel cultured, but yeah,
That's no Doug Kovacs, I'll tell you what.
It's not a Doug Kovacs artwork.
Or Wayne Reynolds.
Or Wayne Reynolds or whatever. The list goes on. But so the type of work that I like is I like all those guys' work. I was always partial to Parkinson because I think the specifically Elmore is very colorful.
Mm-hmm.
It's very bright colors, reds, greens, robust. Parkinson's are, to me, I mean, they even mention this, like
he's more subdued,
shit brown or something like the Parkinson.
He's more subdued,
right? Well, they said this in this documentary, like about his palate. So it's more subdued, and to me, it the realism to me through Parkinson hits home more with me through that. Where, you know, Larry's work is great, Caldwell's is great, and even some of Caldwell's stuff I liked too. The Mines of Bloodstone were awesome because of the reflection and the chrome look that's what gets me crazy is when somebody can paint something and make it look like a metal. Or, you know, that looks like a mirror. No, that is like it looks like a mirror. It looks like somebody took glass and pasted it in there.
I always liked Elmore's lines. They are he's got good lines.
Yeah, good lines.
From my perspective,
compared to that guy, he's got some good lines.
No, Parkinson has a fuzzier feel to it. They're not as crisp. Where Elmore stuff is very clean, to my eyes.
So now, having said that, there are other artists that I don't think people know about that I think really, I'll give you an example. So one of the ones I'm talking about is Veronica V. Jones. I would be blown away if anybody listening to this actually knows who that is. Because I didn't know this. I didn't know her name. I knew it was a female. I didn't know her name. I had to look it up. But
you got a piece?
She did all the art to the Spycraft RPG.
Oh my God, that's good.
So all of the silver gray scale art of all the original Spycraft by now Crafty Games. Originally it was by AEG. Every book.
Yeah, that was sharp, man.
It was Spycraft was in green, and then it would be the agent guy in black and white, black and gray actually, and then every single book after that she did on the cover. And that, like, if you grabbed or if you walked into a role-playing game store and you saw that book, you'd be like, that's Spycraft. And if you saw a supplement, you'd say, Spycraft. Because there was no question on what the brand and the art and the look and the feel was consistent with every book that they ever put out.
Yep.
There was never a full color.
No, you saw
picture.
Those books. If you saw the book, you didn't see the title, you knew what it belonged to.
Yes.
Every time.
And
that was good stuff, man.
Yep. And I liked what she did and how she did it. When they actually went to Spycraft 2.0, I was disappointed with the art route that they went.
Okay.
It just really aggravated me. And I think one of the reasons they went the route they did is because they started emphasizing a card game. I was like,
okay.
God, just why did you do that? And literally, it really turned me off.
I could see that.
Because I respect comics and I respect art, but my preference is more of a realistic kind of thing. Like if somebody put out a game and the theme was like comic book art type style, and that's really ambiguous too, because there are some really good comic book artists like Miller that capture some really good stuff, like The Dark Knight. It's gritty.
There's a lot of good ones out there, man. There's Silvestri was good back in the day, and
I guess what I'm referring to is more of the Looney Tunes.
Oh, okay,
right. Prime colors.
Oh yeah, okay.
You know, like Toon. Yeah, if you're playing Toon, great. It's thematic, but I don't like. You know, I'm not a big.
Well, when White Wolf came out with Exalted, they had kind of what anime. Felt to me like an anime feel, not my style.
I'm not a big anime guy.
No, I looked at it and went, oh. And I started reading it. I was kind of on the fence for the system anyway, but then the art turned me off because I'm like, this doesn't feel to me.
No, me neither.
Whatever. I know other people that love that shit.
Big eyes, small mouth. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, it's obviously big. It has a massive following.
Right.
Just not my style.
Also, I got to say, one of the best art kind of things that really was like, I want to play that game, original Top Secret.
Really?
If you look at the box, passport, different monetary, different passports. I think there's a 9mm, or is it a 22 Beretta? I don't know. There's a gun on there. There's the different currencies. Like, there's the Top Secret, like, folder. I think there's a folder, but it's Top Secret stamped in the stencil.
Yep.
Like, that's espionage, man. That's World Traveler, James Bond shit. I want to do that. Play Top Secret, man.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's not, and I think that's a photograph, actually, right?
It is.
Yeah.
That is, and the woman on it showing leg was Gary Gygax's daughter, apparently.
Is there a woman showing leg on there?
I think so. Yeah, pretty sure.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I don't look at that. Didn't even notice.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think some of the things that got me was the first role-playing game product I ever bought was the Red Box. And
Elmore's Red Dragon.
The Red Dragon was awesome. That was just super cool to me. So I've always liked Elmore. I've loved his stuff. I liked his Crystal Shard cover, his original Dragonlance stuff. I've always liked that. One of the things I also really loved about like Parkinson too is when he did the original first edition AD&D Lankhmar book.
He did.
Which was I have that, and I love that. The Fafhrd and the Grey Mouse are there, just amazing. I love it. And I think I like, to your point, I like the realistic stuff. Doug Kovacs hits a weird itch for me because he, to me, captures Dungeon Crawl Classics perfectly.
Well, that goes back to that, like, Joseph obviously made a conscious effort to do, like, I want Doug to do all the art throughout the entire, like, everything.
Yeah, I need this look because this is this game, right?
Right.
And you get guys like, there's a ton of them, Rosloff and some of the other ones that are in Sutherland and so forth. There's some amazing work on there. And I like, there's certain scenes that I'll go through and I'll see it. And it's that artist, and I like the realistic piece. I think, as you're saying, and I see that and go, I want to have that happen in my game. That piece of art, in almost every major role playing book I have, that I played a ton of, I could parse through and see it. The original Warhammer Fantasy role playing book, it has Gotrek and Felix before they became like this huge series of novels and short stories and stuff. Underground, fighting this huge troll with a black and white mohawk. The troll slayer's there. It's this, and these goblins, and the good guys are way outnumbered. It's going to be a goddamn bloodbath. I looked at that at the bookstore where I was working. I'm like, I have to buy this game.
Is that the same guy who did Blood Bowl?
It could well be. I can't remember the artist on it. But it was just like, I want this thing to happen. I want to be able to do this exact thing. I want this to occur.
Yep.
There was... And to me, that's why when, as goofy as it is like on the Streets of Avalon cover, I wanted to have the thief from the rooftops looking down because I want that scene to happen. I've had that. I've had players do that. I'm like, this just feels so much like when you see this is what this is about. I want that to jump out at you. And I think when I look at some of that stuff, I'll go through, oh yeah, that was a neat drawing of a sword. Oh, that's filler art. There's, a halfling talking to a dwarf. And sometimes even those small pieces, I remember there is I think it's a Jeff D piece of a male and female halfling and this fighter on his knees talking. It looks like he's like talking down to this male halfling fighter who just looks pissed. And there's this little bitty, it's in the BX in the expert book, if I remember correctly. It's just wonderful. It's just this wonderful thing. And sometimes even the filler art of swords on a rack or the dungeon corridor and things like that, just that evocative piece. But anything I see that makes me go, I want that to happen in my game. And if they put that on the cover, that's all the better for me. Because now I really want to see your game.
Yeah.
I really want to see it.
Well, it's tramps 3 people around the treasure chest they're opening.
Oh, fuck
right?
yeah.
The pencil one.
Oh yeah,
yeah, two color.
I love those types. Just the portraiture is okay. Like here's a dwarf, here's a halfling, here's an orc. That's cool. Or here's a Vulcan, or here's here's a Romulan. I'd rather see the action. I want to see a scene that happens in this game. I want that captured. And when I see that captured, I'm like, ooh, that's it. That's it right there. Because if those are done, anybody can draw. I shouldn't say this. This is going to sound like anybody can. And that's not what I mean. Simply having portraits and gear, right? Here's a drawing of a gun. Here's a drawing of a truck. Here's a drawing of a thing. One of the reasons I loved Star Frontiers when I got it was Larry Elmore's cover.
Right.
Just grabbed me right there. That's what the fuck is going on. And you read through the book, and there's scenes, there's stuff happening. The Drellicites hiding behind in little, pseudopods up over the sides so they can see what's happening. Those action shots, to me, that's one of the really cool things that fantasy or RPG art, I should say, brings to the table. Because what those artists are trying to do is tell you what you're going to get to do. That's just awesome to me.
Yep. I agree.
So I guess I asked you what your favorite piece was. Then you went to...
Yeah.
And you went to the Spycraft thing. Is that...
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I don't know if that's my favorite piece necessarily, but I think it's a very branded, consistent, and appealing approach to this is what we want our game to be like, and we want her to do. I think she did. Well, there was some other folks that did interior art. There was a list of them, especially on the one role playing game or the core rule book. But her, and I've seen, I think, prints of those and even alternate prints, right, where some of the color does get thrown through. But I wouldn't go and buy like I'm going to get all the covers and get them printed and put them.
Do you
up
collect art in any way?
No, I have not. Although I started looking at what some of the glyces, I think that's what they are, which are reproductions. I think they're called glyces or glucies, that are reproductions of prints that are digitally reproduced with high resolution.
Oh, okay.
So they're better than prints.
Oh,
but they're also more expensive.
Okay.
So you can actually go on some of these major artist websites and they'll offer those.
Oh,
so they're like $300 a piece.
Nice.
Where like a print maybe like 50, I don't know, maybe 100, I don't know.
Because I love, I've got 2 Elmore prints on my wall. I love one. I've been looking at some Brom. Brom does great stuff.
Yeah,
he did a lot of Dark Sun and a number of other things. I gotta make sure from a personal favorite piece. Eric Quigley is an artist, and he did The Death of Beecher, which is Newton Beecher were 2 characters in my first Avalon campaign ran with my home group. That was Lenny and Beta's characters. And Beta's character gets shot and is dying, and Lenny had it painted out for me. And I've got a canvas print on my wall. It's just the coolest thing. Every time I look up at that, it's just awesome.
Original art is crazy, and it's not cheap.
No, it is not.
But
it is not. But it's so fucking cool. It is cool. So cool. And those Elmore prints on my wall, I have the Red Dragon. Then they have his redo of the Red Dragon with an older warrior, outside. Again approaching a Red Dragon that apparently just knocked him off his horse. And there's this. You contrast the two. The first one is this young, dark-haired warrior charging the Red Dragon, and the other one is he's like, all right, here we go again. His armor's dinged and dented. He's got a magic sword. It's glowing. He's just walking across the snow, killing another dragon. It's what we do. Motherfucker killed my horse. It's got this wonderful feel to it. I love it.
I mean, there's a list of them that I think... if somebody said, if you could get an original piece of art from any artist that's ever done or been featured in a particular book, the differences in my wants would vary. Like, it would be great to have a Sutherland, DMG, AD&D
There
original.
are some amazing artists that did stuff for Cassium in the Call of Cthulhu line.
Sure.
And the Elric stuff. I like Elric Mlebene. I like the Michael Moorcock books too. And when when you think any piece, you go through your library of books and things you love, and you're like, oh my God, I could use a spy car. Oh, wait, this one. Oh, wait, that one. There's so much stuff. There's so much.
Yeah, I contemplated getting Ravenloft, the original Caldwell, original
cover.
Yeah. And getting that. And even Ravenloft 2 or with Strahd carrying the woman.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's so many, and I don't have enough wall space. Parkinson's, what do you mean we're lost?
Oh, the Draconians?
With the Draconians, the Gods of Lankmar piece with the skeletons.
Yes.
Skeletal warriors. The Lord Sauce Charge, I was, you know, I still think the Gods of Lankmar is better.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
But, yeah, those are probably pretty good classic pieces.
I do want to, before I lose this piece, I want to call out one of the other things that RPG art has done, which is really cool, is when you get into the horror stuff like Call of Cthulhu, getting artists to draw something that was indescribable. You read some of the books that shit came from. It's like an undescribable, massive, violent violet protoplasm constantly forming and reforming that drives you mad when you look at it. Hey, could you draw that for me? It is crazy. The numbers of different, like, hey, this is what Cthulhu looks like. And the interpretations and the variations on those themes. I think one of the cool things that we've gotten now that more artists, very experienced artists, right, in different styles, take a crack at stuff. And that's why you can take a game like Exalted, and it did really well. I knew a lot of different people who really liked it. And it's a very anime style, I'll say that. Not my cup of tea, but it's there. There's a fantasy game with that style to it. Somebody's doing a horror game with a different style of art to it. And sometimes it's just, it's wacky, it's amazing, and it's really neat. There's so much good stuff now.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that's kind of amazing is the impact that RPG art has had on everything that's not a tabletop RPG. If you pick up Skyrim, you pick up any, video game, it has those qualities that the guys at TSR, the men and women who put stuff together, that those artists that we're putting out there, that's the standard, right? What does Cthulhu look like? What is this? That harkens back to a lot of the old original artists that were drawing and painting this stuff. That's what it goes back to. And because it's becoming so accepted or, modern, or more and more people know it, it's just really neat to see that influence wave out to all this other stuff. It's just really, really cool.
Yeah.
All right, man. Did we hit anything you actually want to talk about on this?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I wanted to know kind of what your favorite artist was and piece, and how the importance of art is within the RPG hobby, and whether that's a deal breaker for some people or a deciding factor when picking up things.
I think it is.
Yeah. I mean, there's some people like, just give me the grit, content, cool. I'll make up my own art, my brain, which is fine. But I think, customarily speaking, traditionally, it's been a big factor in the hobby. Agreed. I mean, I can't imagine making a product and then not thinking about the art that coincides with it.
Me either. No.
It's like, what art? Why would we need that?
What?
Huh?
Yeah.
And it's important. Like, if you did Numenera and you're like, well, I want Matt Merrill to do Numenera, and you had Wayne Reynolds do it, or Elmore, you're going to get a
different look, different feel.
People are going to look at it and go, oh, if they looked at it like this way, it would be like, oh, that's what it is. And then if somebody else did, it'd be like, oh, no, that's what that is.
Yeah.
Right. So I would be interested to hear. I know some people chimed in on Twitter on who their favorite artist was. It wasn't a ton of feedback, but I would be interested to know who your favorite artist is and your favorite piece. And that piece could be just, this page on this book, whatever. let us know. And it doesn't have to be the same. You can have a favorite piece that isn't done by your favorite artist.
Yeah.
You know,
the other thing that would be interesting, and I don't want to go who's your least favorite because we don't want to get in a bashing competition. But I'm curious as to have you ever bought an RPG or gotten into one or whatever despite the art, or for an RPG that has very little to no art? Does that actually stop you? If you don't enjoy the art or if it has minimal art, because art, as Sean pointed out, good art. It ain't cheap.
No, it's not.
So just kind of curious as to, we're talking, Sean and I both, obviously, we really like it. We like plenty of it and so on. But is there such a thing as too much in an RPG book for you? Do you actually had that? I heard that once against Astonishing Swordsman, Sorcerer's Hyperborea, the second edition of the big hardcover. There's too much art. I heard from a couple different people. I'm like, I don't know if that's possible. But, taste may vary.
I suppose.
So anyway, just kind of curious what people's thoughts are there. Do you need art to buy the RPG? Is that a requirement for you? Type of thing. So cool. All right. Oh, we're going a little bit long. We moving on.
Gyro. All right, so we're gonna have links to some of the references earlier, and then going along with this episode, we'll have links to some of the artist sites if they're out there, like some of the big ones: Todd Lockwood, Keith Parkinson, Larry Elmore, Clyde Caldwell, Jeff Easley, anybody else we'll put in there. If you want to add some, we'll point them out. That's what we should do. Who is your favorite artist? What's your favorite piece? And where do people go to see it?
And if you know someone, like I just said, Eric Quigley.
Yeah.
Right. I found him on Google Plus because he was doing some work and he did this piece for my friend. There's a lot of really good artists out there that we did not name.
Yeah. Tons.
That are doing incredibly kick-ass work. If you know somebody, some person out there, man, woman, child, do not care, and she's cranking out the best damn stuff you've ever seen, send us a name and a link. I would love to put it out there.
Yeah,
because I'd love to get people looking at stuff.
Yeah, we'll combine it all. We'll do like an art links thing and put it out there for everybody to digest.
Slick.
Eye of the Beholder, The Art of Dungeons and Dragons was a Kickstarter. It is now available on its own website to include Amazon Prime. If you have it, you can watch it for free on Prime.
Oh, can you now? Cool.
It is a documentary on the art of D&D, and I watched it a couple times, and it was pretty cool. And it interviews a lot of people we talked about. The number 2, if you are a Dungeons and Dragons fan, you got to have the Art and Arcana, a visual history. We'll have links to the book on Amazon. That's great stuff. Talks about a little bit about the art and the different people that have contributed to D&D specifically.
Sweet.
I think that's it. I mean, there's tons. I mean, you could go on and on for art and artists and things of that nature, but what we would be talking about, I mean, you could dedicate an entire show.
We could just deep dive into one artist
RPG
portfolio.
RPG art podcast.
Yeah, somebody who's better at that than us do that, because that could be cool to listen to.
But it's hard because it's a visual medium and this is audio.
It is. That's okay.
Yeah.
All right, man. We good?
We're good. I think that's it. What are we talking about next week, Brett?
We're talking about cheating. Cheating in RPGs.
Come on.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Nobody cheats.
Well, I gamed with you last weekend. We got something to talk about.
What? I'll deny it. Deny.
That's what we're talking about. Cheating in RPGs. Next up.
Fine. Cheating. It's acceptable in certain ways. Certain circumstances. All right. Thanks for listening. I'm Sean.
And I'm Brett. Good night and good game and all.
This episode of Gaming and BS brought to you with the help from the following BSers: Graham Minert, Corey Wynn, Hawk Sparrow, Larry Hout, Mark Tasaka, Pure Mongrel, Chris Steele, Ron Bishop, Thomas Hook, Wayne Humphrey, Craig, Brandon Barnes, Laramie Wall, Dan LaValle, Jason Hobbs, Sky, Roger Braslett, John Hammersley, Old School DM, Perry Basor, Michael Dinos, Jim Fitzpatrick, Christopher Gray, Bruce Cunnington, John Kayward, Corey Gonzalez, Eileen Barnes, Robert Nemeth, Niall Diamond, Angus, Howard Bishop, Stefan Dragonspawn, Mark Anthony Benedetti, Eric Salzwiedel, Trevor Davis, The Closet Gamer, Jeff Goad, Aaron Coleman, Ray Otis, C.W. Mellencamp, Craig Huber, Rich Wishon, Old Scoozer Role-Playing, Jared Rasher, Andy Hall, David Balog, Chad Gleeman, Finn Ulf, Mirko Freilich, Lord Tentacle, Joe Swick, Curtis Takahashi, Josh Wallace, Kevin Lovecraft, Andy Olson, Tony Sugarloaf Baker, Jeff Seifert, and Aaron Relia. For ways to support the show, head over to gamingnbs.com/support-us. Thanks, BSers!
This has been a Litterbox Studio production.